All right, and we're live. Special edition of What's on Your Mind, Lumida Non-Consensus. I'm really pleased to have an old friend, David Seaman, join me on the show today. I've been trying to figure out why I have these unidentified flying objects flying all over my backyard here. And we're going to go through a few theories, starting with Black Friday drone theory. And I really couldn't make sense of much of this. So I called David because David, he's been on Joe Rogan multiple times. We'll play a clip from that. He was an OG Joe Rogan guest actually from back in the day, and I've known David, I guess like what since like before 2008. I want to say I mark time in terms of the financial crisis, like before financial crisis and after financial crisis, but I think it's before actually.
Yeah, I remember we were drinking on like Stone Street, and this is right in the middle of the financial crisis, and I knew you before that. So I think the timing is probably correct. 2008, 2009. But yeah, I'm honored that you chose me as your alien whisperer and called me last night.
Exactly. So, I feel like I got to brush up on 8 years of Joe Rogan or something to get caught up speed. And Graham Hancock, by the way, has a really interesting Netflix show people should check out. So let me share my screen here so people can take a look at what all the fuss is about. Okay, so this is from ABC News. They got a high-powered camera.
To look up, like my crew and I have been here in Mendham recording this video that you're looking at right now. We have no idea what it is, if it's a natural phenomenon, because it could be, but this is why so many municipalities are now asking people to reach out and send their videos to them or to experts who might be able to sort out what they're seeing in the skies. But I guarantee there are so many people looking up and making those recordings because this mystery is one that needs to be solved. For now, we're live here in Mendham Borough. Tony Yates, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Lee's saying he's wondering whether or not that might be the moon, Tony, but you pointed out it's exactly the question people are asking. What is it?
No. Yeah. Yeah, no, we're looking at the moon right now, and that's nowhere near the moon.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, the moon.
So we've moon. That's mainstream media, by the way. This is gone, mainstream. My first theory was that this is Amazon Black Friday drone is a gift of the year. This seemed to have started about 4 weeks ago. Black Friday was what, 3 weeks ago. People got a bunch of drones as gifts and they busted out of their boxes. And then what happened is people started launching their own drones to figure out what the other drones were, and it's just one big public mass hysteria. Why is that theory wrong?
Well, I mean, that theory is wrong because people are always buying drones. And, there was a Christmas last year and a Black Friday last year. We didn't have this phenomenon right afterwards. And with the ABC News clip, the people who've tried to fact check that on X and elsewhere say, well, it could be that the photographer, the cameraman, was pointing his camera at a random star in the sky and that it's just out of focus. And you gotta understand the context that ABC News is one of the major news companies in this country, and presumably their production team knows that during the middle of the day, when you don't see many stars to begin with, they're probably not zooming in on a random star or the planet Venus, as some people have suggested. I mean, it does look like an orb that has some kind of iridescent property to it, and it looks almost identical to other videos of the same phenomenon occurring on the East Coast and elsewhere. And so, I don't think we can dismiss this as like lens flare or something when you have all these amateurs posting videos of that orb thing, and then you've got ABC7 posting that video. And again, it's professional malpractice or something if they're zooming in on a random star and telling us it's an object moving across the sky. I think we have to take their word for it to some extent.
So here's another video. I'll hit play.
Check this thing out.
This is from an amateur
I try to zoom in.
photographer with the real SLR lens.
This is what I get. It has a round like shield around it. Fucking nuts. Look, right? That's zoomed in, 100, 208. And I'll show you the drone right now. Up in the sky.
All right. So there's another theory that this is a military equipment. This is government testing. There's a, I think it's called Piscataway Arsenal up in northern New Jersey, and the U.S. government is testing some equipment. There's a theory that the CEO of a drone company whose customers the U.S. government has, which is that they're launching this equipment and they don't want to alarm the public because they are sniffing. So sniffing is a term used to detect something, and so those detection operations run at night. They might be detecting gas, or the kind of thing you would do if there was like a dirty bomb or radiation or whatever it might be. In other words, that these are not actually intrusions into military space, but quite the contrary. This is like a military base that's launching and testing equipment. And we certainly know sheriffs are launching drones. Also, they're trying to make sense of what's going on. So, what do you make of that theory? I'll share that one on screen too.
I think that is a interesting beginning of unpacking this, because for one thing, if you're running drones at night with the lights on, you want to be seen, right? You could run the same tests, the same diagnostics with the lights off, and then nobody would even know they're up there aside from the occasional noise of it passing overhead. The lights are on, I believe, some people have suggested, so that local law enforcement and local military bases and such don't knock these things out of the sky, which would make sense. If it's actually the U.S. government running these sniffers, they would not want these valuable assets to be knocked out of the sky by, say, local police or the National Guard or something. So the lights are on at night. They don't mind being seen. The orb issue is that even if it's the government, how does it work? Like there's no discernible propulsion. It doesn't have navigation lights like these drones do. And as I was starting to say to you earlier on the phone briefly, if we try to be professional about this and just do like a first principles analysis, we actually have two different phenomena occurring at once, and we're not certain if they're connected, but we can, there's a probability that they are, right? So we have the orbs showing up, and then we have drones in Oregon and in New Jersey and near New York. Now they're both happening at the same time, which has led people to conflate the two. But maybe the government drones are watching the orbs in a way that is kind of passive and doesn't subject them to radiation or whatever energy those balls actually use to stay afloat, right? Or the orb could be a total MacGuffin. That could be just nothing and it doesn't matter. And the main story is thousands of drones, searching around certain parts of the country. So that's, I think, where we need to unpack also.
Well, it's interesting. Notably, New Jersey and Oregon are both by the water. We'll come back to the water and the ocean, I think, later on. So, look, I agree. Like Black Friday drone special really doesn't make sense. There are commercial industrial grade drones that are large. You can't buy them at retail. They wouldn't fit in your car. Some of them are the size of a car or larger. They've got lights on them, and those are more conventional and easier to understand. So those are up in the air. But then you have these other, these orbs. We saw an orb off of Hudson from New York. That was a few weeks ago. That was reported on. I think everyone kind of dismissed that very quickly, but it's such a persistent phenomena. You can't dismiss it anymore. So this fellow here, so he's the CEO of Saxon Aerospace. They manufacture manned drones. He has a 9-minute video. And again, his theory is that it's a government operation and they're running a detection protocol. And he lays out the whys and the wherefores. I won't walk you through all that. You can go check out his video if you're curious. Just go to my Twitter profile and you'll find the link there. His interpretation is that it's not alien phenomena. It's like the United States lost a nuke and it came from Ukraine or Russia or wherever, but it's gotten its way in the United States and they're trying to find this. That's his interpretation. So really 2 points he's making. One, it's a detection mechanism. And then the second is that they're trying to find this lost nuke anyway. So hopefully my property prices won't drop too much if that's the case. Probably a bigger to worry about.
Hopefully the whole world doesn't fall apart, right? Because even if it's just them searching for a lost nuke, that's pretty frightening. and would cause a lot of people to, I don't know, be about as weird as during the height of the pandemic, right? People are
I'm
going to
very
stay at home.
skeptical
Or,
of that idea. Though. I'm very skeptical of that. You know, you have nest operations which are designed and focused on detecting and major ports. Of course, New Jersey does have a major port, and again, it is also by the water too. So, you know, you can kind of interpret things both ways.
yeah, I mean, just to take the most like extreme podcaster view here, if they are just legitimately aliens or something from the ocean, like those creatures in the abyss, you know, like some intelligent creatures that create something, uh, the moon landings, if there were moon landings, the government was very careful to quarantine the astronauts afterward and to sterilize all the stuff that came back to Earth because they were very concerned about cross contamination. They didn't really know at the time if there were bugs in space, right? So maybe they just wanted abundance of caution while interacting with this unknown thing. And then again, maybe people are dishonest, and maybe the drones are the real story, and the orbs are just some Hollywood distraction to keep people from asking why is there a concerted effort to search for something on the East Coast and in Oregon. Uh, and if you're the government, I don't think it's beyond them to put out some fake scent sort of to get a lot of the people looking this way, while meanwhile they're going this way.
But
You know.
distract from what? Distract from the United Health CEO assassination doesn't make distract from what? I'm not.
Oh no, sorry. I mean distract from the drones themselves. That the whole orb thing is just to make people think, oh, this is unknown, when really it's actually the government looking for something specific, maybe, and that would cause a lot of panic if that's what it is.
Yeah, look, I think this is just embarrassing for federal government. Uh, the state and local governments are upset at the federal government, right? There was a meeting last week where they had the mayors and they came out and they said they haven't told us anything. State senators are taking to media, sheriffs are putting their own drones up in the sky. There's a law enforcement official who provided a testimony that he saw these drones coming off the ocean looking east. You know, it's a professional law enforcement individual. You know, it's credible people, right? That's also been reported. We've got that link there below. So, you know, it is a mixed message though, because on the one hand, the message is, hey, there's nothing to worry about, and two is we don't know what the hell's going on. So it's like if someone walks on your property, okay, and you don't recognize or can't identify what that is, how do you have assurances that you're safe?
Right. Yeah. No. It's not only the emperor has no clothes in a sense, but it is the paradox of power when you're dealing with centralized institutions where they're coming out and basically saying to the public, we're not that concerned about this, and we're not going to shoot them out of the sky. And then by not flexing their power, it makes people question, well, can you remove them if you want to? Why would you not want to remove them? Right. So it's like the federal government projects absolute power, that they control the airspace. But right now, our airspace is not controlled. And the former governor of Maryland, he posted this video of the drones in his backyard. And he's probably a savvy person. If he was governor for a couple of terms, he's not going to mistake some hobbyist drone from Black Friday for something that's so troubling. He needs to post it to social media immediately and ask what's going on. So
Let's show that clip real quick. So this is the former Maryland Governor Hogan, and yeah, so on Twitter he posted this. Take a look. Again, a bit grainy. Two different drones. I mean, you know, that's not fixed wing aircraft with flashing lights. Right? The fixed wing aircraft flashing lights, that would be commercial drones that we understand. Looks like there's three.
in all these videos, it looks much smaller than it does in person, apparently, when someone sees this, just the nature of the lens. So again, this guy is the former governor of Maryland, and he's recording this and he's really troubled by it. If it were just some tiny little thing, like again, a cheap hobbyist drone passing by incidentally, I don't think he would cause such a stir about this. And you have politicians in New Jersey who are asking for answers. These are relatively savvy people. So
Yeah, he's a
that's
credible, sober individual. His job as governor was to maintain public order, not create hysteria. He doesn't have an incentive to share a clip like that. So it's more questions. Now, you also had a clip too. When I called you, you said, Ram, I've seen this before. Of course, you'd be the first person to see this, of course. And anyone in my friend circle, of course, David had some experience with this. So let me put that up on the screen now also. And while I set that up, tell us, where you were at the time.
Yeah, so I was at my house in Oklahoma, and I like to do telescope night, where I just put the telescope in the backyard, and because it's in the country, there's not that much light pollution, so you actually have a good time, and you see all kinds of stuff. Jupiter on a regular basis, and Venus and Mars, depending on the season. You can even see satellites. Like you'll see the movement of bigger satellites, and maybe the Chinese space station and the International Space Station. They're both up there, and you can see both of them. And one night, it wasn't even dark yet. I was setting up the telescope and just saw this.
I'll hit play on the video now. I think that's you talking to your family. So when did you record that?
That was taken on March 11th, so it was back in the spring.
Okay.
And so the video that was taken from my iPhone, to the naked eye, I could see that this was like a ball or a sphere that was not being taken by the wind. This was something that was under its own power and was moving quite quickly across the skyline and then went behind the tree line. And again, not being taken by the wind, no wings of any kind, no sound. And when you looked at it, there was this luminescence to it that's very unusual, like it was shifting. The colors were shifting. You could see like a very small part of that when I zoom in all the way. And I just recorded it because it's something weird. And at the time, so dusk, you're not going to see satellites because they're too faint. That's only when it gets dark. You're going to see maybe Venus, but that's a very distinct thing. And you'll see planes, obviously, and helicopters and drones. And this thing was clearly none of those. And we have an Air Force base that's not too far away. So I do occasionally see like a cargo plane or even a fighter jet training. And this thing was so different, both in its speed of movement and how does it work? Is my question, right? Because it's not being taken by the wind. It doesn't seem to be a balloon because it's moving way too fast. And so that's why I recorded it and I thought it would take off on TikTok. And nobody cared. People were like, "Oh, I've been seeing that too." People in Texas were commenting, "I see those." And so I wonder if this is something that's been, happening with greater regularity, and only now is it bubbling to the forefront for whatever reason.
So I was listening to some of the political shows this morning because I wanted to just tune into the subject. And apparently there have been 4 incursions on military bases in the UK and also other incursions on US bases in Europe too, which I was surprised to hear. Yeah, but like there's a lot of phenomena around this that's been happening. It's just now getting attention and focus. I mean, is there a connection to these military bases in any way? Like, what would the connection be?
Well, I mean, some people have argued that the aliens, if they're out there, they take an interest in when we get close to nuclear war because it might have an impact on the broader solar system or whatever, if we're using fission and leaving behind radiation on this planet, they might just also not like that, you know. So if aliens are like zookeepers in a sense, and we're the monkeys that get out of control from time to time, it would make sense that they might be following the movements of nuclear weapons, which of course would move through air bases at certain points. And that's not my own theory. That's just what other people have kind of suggested. And so maybe they're keeping an eye on our nuclear technology. And, you know, maybe they're just a distraction. Maybe it's the government putting up something cool looking to distract from these movements of nuclear weapons. That's another possibility.
Let's listen to this video. This is a compilation of video that was posted by my friend Sonny here. I'll hit play. This will be a few minutes.
Local law enforcement. What our initial assessment here is that these are not drones or activities coming from a foreign entity or adversary.
You're telling me we don't know what the hell these drones are in New Jersey are? Is that correct?
That's right.
It's crazy. I mean, that's crazy. That's madness that we don't know what these drones are.
From the Coast Guard, who said that one of their 47-foot motor lifeboats was followed by between 12 and 30 of these drones as they went through the water.
These are 6-foot drones that are somehow evading our detection. They are not being detected.
They're saying no threat, but how the hell do they know? They don't know anything. They don't know what it is. They don't know where it come from. They don't know nothing.
They know that they can't track them. They know that they don't emit a signal. They know that they can't see them when they turn their lights out. They also indicated that they don't know where they come from. They don't know where they go to.
One family claims they followed a drone in their car, and while it hovered above them, the clock in their car changed times.
Some of the FBI agents that have been assigned to look into this have reported drones flying over their home.
It's right here over Picatinny. There was a drone just hanging out. I put my drone up in the air and went towards it. I had full battery life. Not 3 minutes into the flight, I lost control of the drone. Warning on my screen, you know, lost control, and my drone started going down dead.
These are fully charged batteries. It's 2 batteries that have died within seconds, and the drone went up and like a couple feet off the table, and then came right back down.
Okay, you see it? You see how it goes? See how it goes? And then it becomes a spacecraft or aircraft or whatever you want to call it.
What the fuck is that, bro? Did this get smaller? Bro, what?
Above the ocean, and it was low, very low, but so bright and so clear, and it was huge. Like when you...
I'm concerned. I issued a letter to ask for more information, and I think there should be a lot more transparency about it.
Can you make that make more sense? Because I think people in New York and New Jersey see drones the size of an SUV over their house every night and think that that doesn't make any sense.
I understand why people would be looking at this and being concerned about it. We're concerned about it too, which is why we have the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI. My goodness, looking at this, and we're taking it seriously. We
So they walked back their statement last week, by the way. I think last week the Pentagon put out a statement, and now they've kind of adjusted their tone to what you just saw here, which is more like, hey, we're not sure, we're trying to figure it out. Initially, the discovery was delegated to state and local officials. Now, like, federal agencies are involved. I mean, that's any reaction?
Yeah, it escalated pretty quickly, right, in terms of who's looking into it and giving us the news updates, the press conferences and stuff. And I don't know, it's very unsettling. Half of our resources as a country basically go to the military and our defense. And I've read in certain places that we have a system that's satellite based that can detect the origin of any drone that enters military, airbase, which I believe, just based on the resolution of satellite imagery today, you can totally do that. So the question is, why aren't they tracking these things back to their origin point? Is there no origin point? Are they just appearing out of thin air? And so again, even if they're too fast to be intercepted, you should be able to get images on these surveillance satellites. And so the government either has these images and they're not showing us, or they don't have the images, and both are disturbing for different reasons.
So here's another video. This is from Carl Nell, who spoke at the SALT conference 6 months ago. He was in Army Space Command. He has a master's in strategic studies, mechanical engineering. He worked at Bell Labs. He says he's worked at multiple 3-letter agencies. Let's take a look at this 2-minute clip.
So non-human intelligence exists. Non-human intelligence has been interacting with humanity. This interaction is not new, and it's been ongoing. And there are unelected people in the government that are aware of that.
And so, Carl, that is quite a bold statement. I'm wondering, and I'm curious, how confident are you that that is true?
There's zero doubt.
And Carl, what evidence have you seen? What was the moment where you developed this level of conviction? Because what you're saying is extremely consequential and very important. And I know that a lot of people here even perhaps may not believe that statement.
Right. Well, probably a better way to ask that is, how can the folks in the audience come to the, a common understanding of what this phenomenon is? And so there's sort of 2 tracks here. One is from first principles, and another is actually from the data. So let's take a look at the data. So we can look at some folks that have very high level access to information, like Paul Hellyer, who is the defense chief for Canada, has come out and said the same thing. We can look at Ham Eshed, the head of Israel's, or former head of Israel's Space Force, has said the same thing. Chris Mellon, Deputy Assistant Secretary for Intel, SAPCO, has essentially said the same thing. Lou Elizondo has said the same thing. David Grush has said the same thing. David Grush cleared for presidentially level material. So you're looking at people that are in a position to know this, and they're telling you the same thing. You could take a look at the Gang of 8 in the Senate and in Congress. So there's 2 members of the Gang of 8, Marco Rubio and Senator Chuck Schumer, that signed up to the UAP disclosure amendment last year that basically said they're not being told the truth and we need to push forward on that. So that's sort of an overview of some of the data. From a first principles standpoint, what's so unusual about this realization? There's billions of stars in the galaxy. Life here evolved in 500 million years, which is basically a blink of an eye. We've found planets around every star that we've looked at. It's likely that the universe is full of life. If you look at the SETI program in particular, the SETI program has all the same assumptions that you would accept and probably make with respect to this topic, except that they believe that non-human intelligence is transmitting signals here. But at the same time, like, we're not transmitting signals. SETI doesn't transmit signals. And the only signals that are actually broadcast of high enough power into space for somebody to pick up come from broadcast television and ballistic missile early warning systems, which you could argue our technology is moving away from. We're going to satellite, we're going to fiber. Broadcast TV is a thing of the past. And if you get to some state where society is stable, maybe we don't need ballistic missile early warning systems. So the other guy is probably not going to transmit. But what the other guy may do is come here, if that's possible to do. And there's physics models that suggest that may be possible.
That's probably a video that's worth watching in full. I was actually at SALT conference last year in February. Clearly, I was on the wrong track. I should have been at that one.
UFO panel, definitely.
It was not on my bingo card last year. It's funny. We had like remember the Chinese balloon going through U.S. airspace. You start to reinterpret these historical events and trying to make sense of that in this new context. So, he rattled off a few names there. One was Paul Hellyer, Canadian defense chief, our neighbors up here to the north. So credible people. I would say this also, like, if you're going to the public talking about this, the risk to your public reputation is significant, right?
Oh, you can lose contracts, you can lose speaking gigs, he could lose whatever security clearances he's netted over the years. And one thing to keep in mind when we talk about this is we assume that ET would come to us in a place like suburban New Jersey. It would be much like us. It would be a humanoid that would come down. But even on this planet, the life we see is so diverse. We have, at the same time as humans, surviving in the same environment. You have octopi, which look, essentially like from outer space. You have spiders, which share really nothing in common with us. Uh, uh, I could go on, but if you were approaching the Earth from the Pacific Ocean side, right, from the Asia Pacific side of the planet, uh, you would like see almost no land, and you would just see the big blue ocean. And so it's totally possible that some of these species are primarily aquatic. You, you have NASA considering Europa as a possible candidate for life and sending that Europa Clipper probe out there, which should get there in, I think, 4 or 5 years. It's one of Jupiter's moons, Europa. But point is, scientists take this seriously, that intelligent life could emerge from oceans on other worlds, in which case they would probably be more interested in burrowing into our ocean than at first, meeting us on what is essentially an island of land that is, foreign to them. So we could be not seeing a lot of activity because it's happening under the water.
Well, look, 3/4 of the Earth's surface is water. You have whales, which have larger brains than humans. Dolphins display signs of intelligence. There's actually a book dedicated to octopus because the octopus shows signs of intelligence and social behavior and planning. It's a really incredible book, by the way. Find a 5-minute YouTube clip. I'm no longer eating octopus anymore. I have a different respect for, is it octopi at this point?
What about calamari? Or squid smart too? Or are they
anymore? I just can't get there. Can't get there. But so this is Paul Helmer. So made headlines in 2005 saying he believed the existence of UFOs. Was a guest speaker at Exopolitics conference in Toronto, where he told the audience he had seen a UFO one night with his late wife and some friends. Wow, these are the people that have actually come out and said something. You wonder people that haven't said anything. Here's another person that was referenced in that video, former Israeli space security chiefs. This is the person who's the head of Israeli Space Command. Now, the U.S. has its own space command. They haven't said anything. So it says a galactic federation has been waiting for humans to reach a stage where we will understand what space and spaceships are. The issue I have with this theory about space and spaceship, look, I'm a neophyte here. I'm an amateur. I'm just curious. I'm trying to learn and make sense of the world around me like anyone else, right? So the issue I have with the space and spaceships is that we know from the theory of relativity that the distances required to travel from one system to another are vast, and it's not operationally feasible in terms of energy, in terms of the time dilation effects, to interact with another civilization. So it's just hard for me to get my head around that concept. Even a massless photonic entity, which is beyond our concept of physics, by the way. I mean, if you had an entity that could maintain coherence in a photonic way, and the reason why I say it's massless, because it would need less energy to move and travel at a faster speed of light. Even photons can't exceed the speed of light. Photons move at the speed of light. So, if they detected radio waves emitted in the last 100 years from 1950s TV shows like the Brady Bunch or whatever, they still would not have received those signals, much less have had the time to process and then interact. So it's hard for me to buy interstellar galactic spaceship concept.
Yeah, I think with traditional physics, it would be very hard for any species to visit us in that amount of time. Because if the closest star systems that they think might have life are, let's say, 40 to 50 light years away, you're talking about, a human lifespan just for them to get here and get back and tell their own planet what we're like, right? Same if they were to send a radio signal back. So if they're coming here, it's probably through some kind of special physics that we don't yet fully understand. Or they've been here for so long somewhere in the solar system that they're actually not coming from that far away, that they're just good at hiding, essentially.
So
Which if you think about it, humans do that, right? So humans will hide when we're observing, say, like a family of chimpanzees or something. And the question that I have is, So the Voyager space probe, where we attached the record of sounds of Earth and stuff and shot it out there, and now it's past the heliosphere, it's past the solar system, it's in interstellar space. Uh, it's junk compared to what we would send today. If we were to do a Voyager 3, we would load a large language model, a chat GPT type thing into it, and an alien race would be able to ask potentially in their native tongue questions about us and get interesting answers, right? And that's how far we've come in just 50 years. And so you think out 100 years or even 1,000 years, a civilization like us, maybe we would get to the point where we could just fire off an energy ball at another world that's basically a drone, basically an AI, data collector, and then it could come back at high speed or give us some kind of compressed data telling us what's going on in that world. So I guess what I'm saying is, if there are aliens out there, there's no reason to think that their first drones would look anything like Voyager, because even today our space probes don't look like Voyager, if that makes sense.
I totally agree. This is an image of the Voyager satellite that was sent up, I want to say like 1979 or so, maybe 77. And they put in, the music of Mozart. They put in, I think, an image a Da Vinci-like image showing the anatomy of the human body, some gestures towards peace, showing some attributes of the human culture. But yeah, now you put like an iPhone in there, and it would and a GPT local language model, and it would be much more effective at interacting with alien species. So I don't buy the interstellar concept. Also, when you look at the laws of physics, the limits on the speed of light are built into space-time itself. I mean, it's part of the structure of physics. It's not like a technology workaround to this. That's my best understanding of this. I studied physics for 2 years at Columbia, where they invented the laser that inspired me to go to Columbia. Then I realized that at a certain level of like math classes, me and eight guys who all had Asperger syndrome and were smarter than me. And I had a crush on a girl who was taking economics, so I switched majors, and the rest is history. So now I'm in a different zoo called finance at this point. So there's also mysterious. So, but your other point though, I think is if there is such a concept of alien life, the idea of cohabitation makes a lot more sense, because you don't have to worry about physics of wormholes or black holes. None of that really makes sense, by the way. It's a means of interstellar transportation. These things would destroy and rip apart matter and the configuration of matter, upon approach. So, but cohabitation conceptually makes a lot more sense, right? There's nothing incompatible with that idea in the laws of physics.
Yeah, I mean, to go to a different branch of science for a second, evolution, you have I forget what it's called. I guess it's convergent or parallel evolution, where species that are quite different will develop, say, wings or claws that look the same. But you go back in their tree of their, ancestors, and they don't have much in common when you go back. So is it possible that, in all the time that life has existed on Earth, that maybe in the deep ocean something evolved originally from somewhere else, right? And then came here and just hid from us for thousands of years? That does solve the physics problem. And it also solves for pre-scientific accounts of things that seem to be UFOs or aliens,
Such as what? When you say pre-scientific, you mean like prehistorian accounts, like the Sumerians and the Egyptians, or what do you mean by that? Or antediluvian theories, or?
Well, there were sketches made of like a battle in the sky during the Middle Ages, and when you look at it, it looks like modern day UFOs. And they're also not hieroglyphs, but whatever you call the drawings that are in like the American Southwest that date back thousands of years. And some of these people look like aliens. Some of these drawings, I mean. And one line of thinking that people like to use is they drew it because they saw it, right? They draw horses because they saw horses. They draw fields because they saw fields of grain. They draw something with big eyes that looks like it's from outer space because maybe they saw another hominid species that usually we're not privy to. Yeah, that's one of the sketches from the Middle Ages. You look at that, it looks like a modern day spaceship and a bunch of UFO stuff.
Yeah, I've never kind of encountered this. Is this one of several, or is this an instance of its own, like one of a kind?
So instead of pre-scientific, I should say pre-flight, right? So there's an account in 1899 in Texas, I believe, and the local newspaper in Texas talked about a craft going down, and that the pilots of this thing were not of this world. And the account would not be that interesting because it just seems like a modern day UFO account, aside from the fact that it crashed and that this was recorded in 1899 before we even have the Wright brothers. So that's what I'm getting at, is that if this is not a new phenomenon and we've been experiencing it for a long time, that lends further credibility to there being something else on the planet or nearby.
Well, let's take a look at what it says here. This is the text on this image. This image is showing the sun and then some abstract flying objects here. And David, do you want to read this? Read this for the audience. Give me a quick second. Yeah.
All right, everybody, let me just read this little part. So, in the morning of April 14th, 1561, at daybreak, between 4 and 5 a.m., a dreadful apparition occurred on the sun, and then this was seen in Nuremberg in the city, before the gates and in the country, by many men and women. So, this is a mass sighting, kind of like the thing in Phoenix in 1998. At first, there appeared in the middle of the sun 2 blood-red semicircular arcs, just like the moon in its last quarter, and in the sun above and below and on both sides, the color was blood. There stood a round ball, possibly, that sounds like an orb, right? So there stood a round ball of partly dull, partly black ferrous color. Likewise, there stood on both sides, and as a torus about the sun, such blood-red ones and other balls, again, orbs being mentioned again, balls in large number, and whatever such signs mean, God alone knows, although we have seen shortly one after another many kinds of signs on the heaven which are sent to us by the Almighty God. So again, this is from the 1500s, and it sounds like a modern day UFO account in many respects. I don't know if you're still muted there, but
Yeah, no, sorry, I'm back. No, it does, using the term ball instead of orb. And then they go on. It looks like there's some action between these globes. They all start to fight among themselves so that the globes, which were first in the sun, flew out to the one standing on both sides. Thereafter, the globe standing outside the sun in the small and large rods flew into the sun. I mean, this is also like a drone display, right? They do this now when you have the Olympics. You have a drone acrobatic display in the sky. So what is going on here? Okay, besides, the globes flew back and forth among themselves and fought vehemently with each other for over an hour. And when the conflict in and again out of the sun was most intense, they became fatigued to such an extent that they all, as said above, fell from the sun down upon the earth as if they were all burned, and then they wasted away on the earth with immense smoke. After all this, there was something like a black spear, very long and thick, sighted. The shaft pointed to the east, the point pointed west. Whatever such signs mean, God only knows. Although we have seen shortly one after another many kinds of signs on the heaven, which are sent to us by the Almighty God to bring us to repentance, we still are, unfortunately, so ungrateful that we despise such high signs and miracles of God. So kind of like a religious interpretation of this. So that's the text underneath this image. You can see the spear they talk about. You see the sun. So these are the different orbs. They talk about, they saw crosses between these orbs. Look like they're 2 different colors, blue and red. We've been seeing the blue orbs. Looks like the blue orbs won. Blue and red. Can you make that up? Blue versus red? So in modern era, we'd interpret politically, right? We use different symbolism.
Right. I mean, what's also interesting about this, like I said, is that it was a mass sighting. It's not as if one artist in a steeple somewhere was high on ergot fungus or something and came up with this. It's people all over Nuremberg and I guess other towns nearby saw something. And that strikes me as similar to the Phoenix lights, which were in 1998.
What
And
were
so
the
many
Phoenix
people.
lights? I've never heard about this. You want to introduce this?
Yeah, I can introduce it, but I think if you can look up a video, that'd be great to show people. So this band of lights appeared over Phoenix and got national media attention, and it was very hard for authorities to dispel it because you have people who had taken video, right? You're in the video camera age by 1998. And to this day, it's one of the things that UFO documentaries mention is as significant alongside the Roswell crash in the 40s or the Roswell incident, whatever it was.
Got it. So here are the Phoenix lights. I just pulled this up from YouTube.
Yeah, that's them right there. That string of lights. It was across a wide area, so people.
Overhead. Was it a military mission, a prank perhaps, or visitors from outer space? The questions and confusion over the sighting have only grown during the prevailing years.
Now, of course, we're much more open to it recently as being real, and the Phoenix Lights is one of the premier mass sightings that they're looking at as being authentic, because thousands of people saw these massive craft or objects hover right over them, glide right over them, rooftop level. Some people said they could have thrown a stone at it. It was that close.
I'm going with space aliens. I just wonder why they haven't come back. They must not have liked what
They didn't like what they saw. Yeah,
I'm
they
getting out of here.
left.
All right, Hawk.
So, that Phoenix is not near the water. I mean, it's not too far from the Pacific. By the way, those are red orbs, not blue orbs. So there are some differences here. Those appear to have some kind of formation about them. Why New Jersey of all places? Yeah. My theory is they went to DC looking for signs of intelligent life. They found none.
They moved up north. They went up the coast.
They're like in New Jersey, trying to get some New Jersey diner hash browns. They will not be disappointed. So yeah, Phoenix Lights. Now in that video that we showed, I guess a few minutes ago, he also referenced David Grush. Let me pull up his Wikipedia page. So
he testified before Congress, right? He said a lot of stuff about all this.
Right. This guy was all over social media last year, right? So he's a UFO whistleblower. I mean, that's what he's known as now. Obviously, he's had a career before that. He's a United States Air Force officer and former intelligence official. And he claims that the U.S. federal government, in collaboration with private aerospace companies, that's probably like Lockheed Martin and Raytheon, has highly secretive special access programs involved in the recovery and reverse engineering of non-human spacecraft and their dead pilots. So he filed a whistleblower complaint in 2022 to Thomas Monheim, the Inspector General of the Intelligence Community, to support sharing classified information with the U.S. Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. So that goes back to the Gang of Eight, right? So the Gang of Eight, that includes Marco Rubio, Lindsey Graham. Let's pull up the Gang of Eight, because these folks would have the access. They presumably would have the knowledge of what this person is talking about.
Well, what about Harry Reid, the former senator? Harry Reid was very much a believer that something was going on, and he was pushing for greater disclosure.
Yep, that makes sense. So here's the Gang of Eight. So you've got Mike Turner, Jim Himes, Mark Warner, Mark Rubio, Mike Johnson, Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, Mitch McConnell. So it's 50-50, by the way, Democrats and Republicans. I mean, aliens could be a bipartisan issue. Interestingly, President-elect Trump made reference to the idea that the feds aren't coming clean with the American public and that they should. He also intimated before his election that he would have more disclosure on this topic should he become elected. So the plot thickens. So look, these are the people you should reach out to your senator, learn more. Now, Marco Rubio was nominated for Secretary of State. Now,
Yeah, no. So the point is, he's now very high up in the upcoming administration, and
if you need,
he's going to hold the same interest in this, I would imagine.
right, if you need diplomatic relationships with extraterrestrials, you've got someone that's been informed on the matter. So there's the Gang of Eight. We talked about the Phoenix Lights. So David Grush, so he's a decorated Afghanistan combat veteran and former USAF intelligence officer. He worked in the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency and the National Reconnaissance Office. Those are the kinds of agencies and offices where one should be exposed to this kind of evidence. From late 21 to July 22, he was co-lead for the UAP analysis at the NGA and its representative to the task force. He assisted in drafting the National Defense Authorization Act of 23, which includes provisions for the reporting of UFOs, including whistleblower protections and exemptions to non-disclosure orders and agreements. So it looks like there's pressure and actions taken against people that want to disclose, right? We talked about, again, the pressures on disclosure and what that can mean for your career could be significant.
Yeah. Just from like a kind of strategy or game theory perspective, if these things are real and if they were to present in a highly populous area for long enough, people would talk about it and there would be knowledge sharing, even if the Pentagon chooses not to tell us more or any other government agency. And I see, of like different truth topics that I follow, the UFO topic has always been one of the smaller things I'm interested in because it seems like their approach is so flawed. They're waiting on the Pentagon to say, yep, this is what's going on and here's more information, which should kind of be like walking into a Chase bank branch and asking them to help you set up your Bitcoin wallet. Even if somebody in Chase knows how to do it, they're not going to do that for you. They're not going to sit you down and set up your Coinbase account. And in much the same way, it's not in the Pentagon's interests to reveal all their cards here. And yet the most powerful people in the UFO community are putting pressure on like the Pentagon and former White House advisors and stuff to fess up and tell what they know. I don't see that necessarily ever happening, but if there are mass sightings and if there's good data taken by just amateur everyday people, as well as maybe universities and stuff, then you don't need that disclosure moment, right? And so I think we're moving closer to that possibly, depending on how long this thing in New Jersey lasts for.
Right. And look, it's the Department of Defense has oversight on the Pentagon. So they would need consent from the Department of Defense chief. Ultimately, it's the commander in chief, the president, that have to authorize that disclosure. I like your Bitcoin reference there. Look, the Pentagon's lost an extraordinary amount of funds that we've no accounting for also. Like, could that be connected to this in any way?
It's also interesting, right? I like the idea that there's some parallel military in the space operations and stuff, but I just don't buy it. I think it's mostly waste and such. But I hope, wouldn't that be nice if there's like a secret Starfleet out there and we've been paying our taxes for it all these years and we didn't even know?
Right. So I got this link sent in. If you can send me that link, Hilla, so I can actually click on it here. It won't let me activate that. By the way, if anyone has any questions for David, we're going to go to the ocean and cohabitation concepts in a moment. And David was on Joe Rogan a couple of times. He was like an OG Joe Rogan guest. So he's got some pretty interesting theories. We started off the show talking about, hey, maybe this is just Amazon Black Friday drones, public hysteria. We evolved that to no, it's military testing, detection operations. That couldn't explain the orb phenomena. I can get the fixed wing flashing lights phenomena. I totally get that. I think that makes sense to my understanding of reality. The orb does not. We don't understand the physics around that. And then you have all these historical references that we've been talking about also. So
Yeah, that's been my big issue over the last week or so with this is people dismissing it as, oh, they're just, the government said they're just drones, or don't worry about it. It's most likely the military. Okay, so how is the military getting around basic physics? How do they have a ball that shows off different colors that can move at, incredible velocities that no aircraft can, and moves around with no discernible propulsion system? So, but yeah, the one of the first Rogan chats I had was about Zechariah Hitchin and his theory that humans were basically genetically modified to help this ancient alien race that came to Earth for a while mine for gold. That we were made smart.
Hold that thought one
Okay.
second. 1 second. That's one hell of a thought, but hold that thought. Let's hit this one real quick. So this just came in from Phoenix. 1.3 million views, December 15th, 5:08 a.m. All right, so this is very fresh. Let's take a look at this.
Whoa, is that moving quick? That could be a drone. I don't know what the hell that is. But that is quick. There's only one remaining right now. Whatever that green flashing was, he moved quick around it to get it. Super quick. He's like right there with it. Oh, he's like right on it. Oh, that whatever it was just shut down the drone. If that was a drone. Holy
So TikTok is our source of truth now. Kind of amazing, right? So what did you make sense of that, David?
Aside from the red instead of mostly blue, it looked very similar to the orbs that have been photographed on the East Coast. And again, this video, it underscores what I was just saying, which is if you're going to say, oh, don't worry about it, this is just government drones. Okay, how are they contradicting known physics? How are these balls moving so fast through the atmosphere with no known propulsion system, no known origin? When it shot that thing down toward the ground, what was that payload? Like, how about some basic answers here to these questions, right? So the longer we don't have those answers, the more people I think are going to get weird. I remember how weird people were at the height of the pandemic, when people were locked in their homes and stuff. And this is very unsettling if you don't have clear answers for what this is at a certain point. Is it a light show? Is it a scam? Is it some technology that we're just not aware of? Or is it, something from outer space or something from the ocean that is intelligent?
Light show doesn't kind of work because you need some background to reflect off of, right? If you go to planetarium, the lasers need to bounce off of something, then the photon hits your eye. Here, what's it reflecting off of? Now, this is one of the best images we've seen. This is again from ABC News, what we're showing right here. Like high resolution, quality camera, and we've not seen anything like that. I mean, it looks like an embryo waiting to get fertilized or zygote or something like that. I have no way to relate to whatever that image is. So yeah, curiouser and curious. Now, before we go to your kind of the alien theory here, check this out. So this is again the Israeli defense chief, the equivalent of their head of space command. He says, "Okay, a respected professor and retired general said the aliens were equally curious about humanity, and were seeking to understand the fabric of the universe." All right. I mean, first of all, this implies there's some communication. There's some communication, at least between this Israel defense chief or that apparatus. It says cooperation agreements had been signed between species, including an underground base in the depths of Mars. I mean, it sounds just completely outlandish and crazy. Now, we've sent rovers, we've sent a couple things to Mars. Now, it's hard to really understand a planet if you just send one satellite over there, right? I mean, it just sounds so fantastical. So it says, added that President Donald Trump was aware of the extraterrestrials' existence and had been on the verge of revealing information. but was asked not to in order to prevent mass hysteria. Looks like we're going to hear something soon. I mean, he's going to spill the beans. I think he's going to spill the beans. He's all right. So they've been waiting until today for humanity to develop and reach a stage where we will understand in general what space and spaceships are. Again, that's the part that doesn't kind of resonate with me. How do you have interstellar travel with the speed of light and the distance between galaxies and so forth? A spokesperson for NASA said one of the agency's key goals was to search for life in the universe, but that it had yet to find signs of extraterrestrial life. Think about like what Elon Musk is doing with SpaceX and mission to Mars too. Should we reinterpret that objective in this context? Are they related? Are they not related? Is he in the loop? Obviously, he has businesses that have defense contracts. So his ideas, Eshed's ideas, are spelled out more detail in The Universe Beyond the Horizon, Conversations with this Professor. So we're going to GPT that book real quick.
Yeah, for sure. Get a summary of that. But there's a very, very strong claims from this former Space Command guy, definitely. And maybe he just means in broad terms, in terms of hundreds of years, they're waiting for us to know what space is. And now that we know, they can come or something. But I just find it weird when there's like a lot of intentionality placed on these beings. Like, oh, they want to come or they want to help, but they're just waiting for A, B, and C. That's not really our approach when we study something, right? We just launch a space probe, we just do it. And I used to watch a lot of nature documentaries, and they'll do things like take a fake, like a stuffed fake monkey baby, right? And put a little GoPro camera on one of the eyes, basically, and then embed it in the wilderness and watch how the adult monkeys respond to it. And there's been a disturbing claim that some of these orbs are able to mimic aircraft, the shape and the lights of aircraft. And if that's the case, maybe we're being tested and studied in the same way that we study the monkeys with the monkey camera, the little baby monkey camera. And I realize that's ridiculous in a sense, but maybe they're just trying to figure out how far along our technology is, because they are appearing in ways that are obvious to us, right? And appearing near air bases, which is where a lot of our technology is accrued. Like if you wanted to be seen and observed, you would probably land near an airbase.
Or, to the earlier point, if you wanted to protect against a nuclear missile launch or detonation, you would interfere with air bases, especially if you have cohabitation.
Right. If it's your planet too, then you have an intrinsic interest in it not being nuked.
Right. You and I are both fans of Star Trek: The Next Generation. We grew up on that. And there's this concept called the Prime Directive. So the Prime Directive was this code that's part of the Galactic Federation of Planets, of which Earth in the show is a part of, and the Klingons were. And the Prime Directive goes that if you detect intelligent life, you cannot interfere with that civilization until they've achieved a minimum standard of technical sophistication. And the standard that they had was the warp drive. So when a civilization generated their first warp drive, then a member, an ambassador from the Galactic Federation would then appear and invite them to join the Galactic Federation. So the question would be like, what technologies have we achieved in the recent 3 years? And there are few, right? We've had the Google launched a quantum computer with 100 qubits, which is an extraordinary accomplishment. Now it's really interesting. If you read what Google said, they're like, gee, this might also prove the existence of parallel universes and all this other stuff, right? That was one. Two, you've got decentralized money backed by cryptography. Why would that matter? Well, look, if you're engaged in a trade relationship, you don't want counterparty risk. And if you think about time from an interstellar dimension, hundreds of years is like the flash of an eye. It's nothing. That's longer than the duration of any known US government. You would want something decentralized. Now, on the other hand, the aliens probably would have some quantum encryption behind their cryptography that could be more advanced. Anyway, what other technologies have we seen? We have Fartcoin, which came on the scene 2 weeks ago. So maybe the aliens said, "All right, we're ready. These guys have seen everything."
Well, you have the collider, right? You have the collider in Switzerland. You have all kinds of nuclear tests that are occurring, maybe in other countries, as we kind of ramp up this more belligerent phase in the world. And so there are definitely things that, even if they're not impressive, might end up on an alien species radar. You know.
Right. So this is Joe Rogan again, and we'll go back. We'll go back to your theory in a moment, there, David. So this is Joe Rogan warns his fans: aliens are out there, man, and yeah. Anyway, look, I need the highlights reel on all these clips. I know he's interviewed Annie Jacobsen before. Annie Jacobsen's an author. She's published a number of books on a couple of these topics, and she's a credible individual. Now, one of the points she made in her book is that the U.S. and Russia, U.S. actually deceived the former Soviet Union by creating images and bodies of fake aliens to throw them off the scent. It was actually information deception, actually undermined the thesis that there were aliens. So, I don't know. There's a lot of mixed information that's out there. But let's go back to your theory now. So, like under the, cohabitation theory, you were on Rogan here. Let me hit play.
Hands big old coin. But when you look at one in the store and they hand it to you, it has weight.
Right.
And you know that like it's possible this thing is thousands of years old and has no rust on it.
Mm-hmm.
And regardless of like what that thing is worth in terms of dollars, you know that what you have is valuable. And same thing like jewelry is made out of gold and silver. And it's just something like in our like little primitive brains, we know like shiny metal that's heavy and doesn't rust has value. We can turn it into a million different things. This is money, and then dollars seem like more and more ridiculous.
Well, do you know the ultimate ridiculous theory on why gold is valuable?
What?
The Zecharia Sitchin theory?
Not heard that.
Oh, here we go down a crazy road. The ancient Sumerian text is like this cuneiform text that was written on clay tablets. And it's this really odd ancient language from about 6,000 years ago where it looks like, you ever seen like an old school nail, like a nail in a really old building?
Yeah,
they don't
yeah.
have a perfect.
It's like triangular almost.
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
exactly. It's not like a tabletop with a spike. It's not like that. They're more of like a steak looking sort of a thing because they were mined out of they were iron. They were made out of iron. These fucking things. Jesus, what was my point?
Zechariah.
Oh, Zechariah said to the cuneiform. So that anyway, this is this weird series of lines, and it's all subject to interpretations. It's really difficult stuff to decipher. But this one guy, Zechariah Sitchin, who's a legitimate biblical scholar and ancient linguist, he said that the entire thing was about the Anunnaki, and that the Anunnaki were an alien race that created us, like the engineer in the movie Prometheus. Like this was his idea of the Anunnaki. They were these giants that created us by mixing their DNA with primate DNA.
Okay.
And that all of this was so that they could make us work for them and mine gold, because they needed gold particles to suspend in their atmosphere to protect them from the radiation. It sounds totally retarded.
That's the answer I'm going to give when somebody asks you about religious beliefs. Just going to say
This
all that
guy,
stuff.
here's what's crazy. This guy wrote this shit in like the 1970s, and he's a legit scholar. So it's really difficult to argue with him, although many other legit scholars do argue with him and completely disagree with his translations of it. But what his translation, what got really weird was he wrote this in like 1970. In the 2000s, 2005 or 6 or something like that, they had some sort of a scientific symposium where they were trying to figure out what are their other alternative methods of protecting people from radiation if we lose our part of our atmosphere, like ozone layers and stuff like that. And they came up with suspending reflective particles
Holy
in
shit.
the atmosphere.
So these people back then had no idea that.
1970, they had no idea of that. Well, this Zechariah Sitchin guy certainly was no scientist in regards to how to deflect radiation. That wasn't his area of expertise. So him coming up with this as a translation from a 6,000-year-old text that was written on clay tablets is quite remarkable.
Yeah.
That he's saying something that scientists figured out 30, 40 years later. And what he's saying is that reflective particles suspended in the atmosphere can protect you from radiation.
Right.
Well, the thing about gold is unlike any other metal. And this is not something that you would need back in the day when you were fucking hurting and, you know, you had need a good metal that you can make a sword out of where you can kill people. Gold wasn't useful in that way. But what it is useful in, you could take gold dust, and a small piece of gold can make an incredible amount of this ultra fine dust. And if gold has bizarre, almost magical properties where you can take one piece of gold and coat an incredibly wide surface
it's
with
the
it.
most, I think the word's ductile. It's the most ductile metal there is. You can bang it out into this thin little flake.
Yeah, it's an amazing metal. It's a really bizarre and amazing metal. And that it would be the perfect metal for suspending in our atmosphere to.
So, you know, gold, I guess aliens have some fascination with gold. I don't know. It did just sound kind of wild. Like why the fascination with gold? It has these properties, and here we're talking about digital gold as well. So,
well, yeah, to be clear, that's not a theory that I place a lot of faith in. It was, you know, just us chatting about it. But
yeah,
is it possible that we were kind of tweaked a little bit by another race that came here in ancient times, and that there's a resulting coevolution? I think that gets around your physics question or your physics problem of they can't come here that regularly because it just takes so long. But maybe they come every few thousand years or every 100,000 years, and then it becomes a lot more feasible to think about, especially if some of these beings were left behind.
right. So Alpha Centauri, which is the closest star system, it's 4.37 light years away. That means you're traveling at the speed of light, which nothing with maths can do. That's 4 years. That's 40 trillion kilometers. If you're going back and forth every couple of thousand years, then you don't have to be anything like the speed of light. You can be 1/250th of the speed of light. I don't know. Maybe they built the pyramids. They're coming back to collect in gold, and they're like, "What the hell happened here?"
Like, what happened? Yep, exactly. The environment's ruined partially. Too many people on the planet. What went down? But no. So if you think about it, pretty much our technology, we could do an interstellar haul if we put all of our resources into it. There's no good convincing reason to do it at the moment, right? But we could do that, and there's technologies like nuclear, what's it called, nuclear impulse, where it's basically a plate, and you have a controlled nuclear explosion, and it pushes the plate forward with the human crew, being insulated from the radiation. With something like that, we could reach the nearest star systems within the lifespan of that passenger for sure. And then you think, what if an advanced species has some kind of cryotech where they can suspend their biological processes for a time? Something like that is probably possible. But again, these are solutions that are simply engineering rather than magical wormhole type stuff.
Right. And I think the more advanced telescopes are showing that there are a far higher number of habitable planets that have the conditions for life in terms of distance from their sun and so forth. Right. This goes back to like the Drake equation. What's the probability of life existing? If you take all the conditions, you multiply them together.
Did you ever read about Oumuamua, which went through the solar system in 2017? That'd be worth looking
right.
up.
Well, that was like what? Yeah, you're right. It was like a. Let's pull that up. Also, it was around Jupiter. I think they passed. If memory serves, right? How do you spell this one, David?
It's OU.
Got it.
You got it. Okay.
The first known interstellar object to pass through our solar system. Okay.
So that they believe is just an asteroid from another solar system. But point is, objects do reach us from elsewhere. And there's no reason to think that something like a solar sail or, again, this nuclear pulse propulsion theory, that another civilization could try that and actually have a degree of success, especially if, again, their timeline is hundreds or thousands of years of civilizational development versus trying to get here overnight.
Wasn't there a guy from Harvard who claimed that this was actually
Avi Loeb? I think he's an astronomy professor there. He wrote a whole book about this Oumuamua thing.
And the argument he made was that the motion of the object wasn't explained by the inertia of the object, meaning that there was some kind of intentional propulsion. It
Right.
vectored
Right.
in a different direction.
Exactly. That it seems like it did a gravity turn using the sun, right? Which to me shows possible intentionality. Why would it pick out our sun out of all the objects that have gravitational force in interstellar space? Why did it beeline right for us, whip around, increase its velocity, and then go right back out?
Right. So this is astronomer Avi Loeb from Harvard University. Let's see. Looking for some of the highlights in this article here.
And my understanding is that we never got close-up data of this one. We could have, but then there was a point where it was just too far away and we couldn't, outrun it, even if we were to send a probe. But something like that, I feel like we should have emergency probes ready to go if there's something that just pops in and is super exciting. And it seems like a missed opportunity that we don't know more.
So the critics claim that this falls well within the realm of natural phenomena. Loeb has taken his case to the public with his book, Extraterrestrial, the first sign of intelligent life beyond Earth. So yeah, look, curiouser and curiouser. It's all very strange. It's hard
Well,
to make.
also, I think if I'm remembering the story correctly, it also the length of it was very unusual for any asteroid to be that long, almost like a rocket ship type design, right? In terms of the length of it, which you'd think you'd want something that's dynamic to cut through interstellar space. There still is some debris, right? There are some particles. So why would you not want something that's aerodynamic? And so that and the propulsion of it, or not the propulsion, but the fact it's slingshotted. I don't know. It's just weird. Just another weird piece of data.
Yeah, a lot of phenomena is not easily explained, right? So there's a PBS documentary, funny enough, funded by another part of the government here, trying to explain what we're looking at here with Oumuamua. So, yeah, strange. I don't know. I think the cohabitation thesis makes a lot more sense. The idea of if there is ET rising out of oceans makes a lot more sense in my mind than the interstellar. Although to your point, there's some engineering technology out there. Could it be detected in certain ways? But you have the conditions for life. You need energy for life. The primary source of energy for life on Earth is the sun that powers agriculture. Then it powers herbivores and omnivores. But you also have geothermal energy in the ocean. I don't know. So, what else? Anything else to add, David? Have we solved the puzzle yet?
I don't think we've solved it yet, but I get a feeling this one's not going away. It seems like this is caught everybody's attention for whatever reason. And like I think I said a few minutes ago, but if I forgot to say it, the New Jersey and New York coastal area, it's the most populous part of the country, aside from Los Angeles Metro. So if you did want to show people something, that would be the place to present yourself in a sense.
Right. Well, you've also got the center of media here, right? New York City.
Totally, it's the center of the culture. Absolutely.
Right. I mean, the executives live in New Jersey, so you have enough media consumption also, including about topics like this. If you got if they had a display in Moscow, I don't think it would go anywhere. So just because it controls information. So that's a great point. I think if you're going to have a reveal, maybe New Jersey, there's some rationale to that. If it was on the West.
No, I think you're right. You wouldn't touch down in Beijing because it would all just be covered up, right? It's like some people would collect the information and they would know about it, but it wouldn't be broadcast and told to the whole world necessarily.
Right. And if it happened in, say, on the West Coast, it would easily be dismissed. If it happened like Joshua Tree, people would say, "Oh, these guys were taking psychedelics or something like that," right? So,
right, Burning Man, totally.
Right, exactly. Like if you're gonna make a grand reveal, New Jersey kind of has a nice, sense to that, which would mean that they'd have some understanding of human culture, right? Maybe they've seen The Sopranos. Yeah, I think quite interesting. Maybe they're here to see MicroStrategy join the QQQ on Monday.
That's what they were waiting for. That was the warp drive moment, maybe.
Right. Or maybe they're looking for a pardon from Joe Biden. I mean, there's trespass, all those alien abductions we've had.
Right.
Maybe
They want a pardon from that. Exactly.
They want to get like this 2-month window, get the pardon in. Then Trump comes on the scene. Then they have the grand disclosure, so they can say, "Look, can we get a pardon here?" Maybe they backed Atlantic City, collecting on their debts. So yeah, I don't know. It's really interesting. Well, thank you for joining, David. Really appreciate this. How can folks follow you and learn more?
I have a Twitter or an X account. Heliothorn is the username. And also my website is Fulcrum News, fulcrum.news, if people want to check it out. Yeah, it's been a great chat. Not many people asked me to ramble about UFOs and aliens, but I think you can be too open-minded and you can have a galaxy brain where you like are open to everything and you're waiting for them to come down and give us incredible technology. But you can also just be a person who doesn't know and a person who looks at the data, and that's what I'm trying to do. Is I just see something super weird happening that could potentially tank my investments in traditional stuff. And so I'm interested in figuring this out from that perspective of what is this going to cost me one way or another. It's not just like I'm sitting here watching it out of curiosity, you know.
I could see public anxiety increasing. It is. Have you seen any commotion in your relations?
I have a family member who is usually pretty sober about stuff like this, and she's very concerned about it. And it seems like it's causing anxiety in people. And the more time that goes by where we don't really know, I think people would rather hear that it's a Chinese science experiment than to just not know, you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, if there is a path to gradual disclosure that has been under works for some time now, at least for me, I'm like all for disclosures, get it out. Like, let's have the conversation. Fascinating. Thank you so much, David. Until next time, we'll chat again soon. All right.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you again, Ron.
Yep. Take care, bud.